20 million tourists believe they've seen Rome after photographing the Vatican and throwing coins in Trevi Fountain, but they haven't. The authentic Rome exists behind unmarked doors and anonymous garden walls, in neighborhoods deliberately engineered to confound outsiders while welcoming those fluent in the city's unwritten social grammar. For every famous piazza crowded with visitors clutching maps, there exists a secret courtyard where Roman dynasties have entertained the powerful for centuries, spaces you'll never stumble upon accidentally. Indeed, the city operates like an elaborate theatrical production, showing casual visitors the elaborate public stage while reserving its most exquisite performances for those with access to the wings and private dressing rooms. Therefore, in today's episode of Sir Luxury Travel, we explore the shadow city existing alongside tourist Rome, neighborhoods where exclusivity isn't measured through mere wealth, but through something far more valuable: the privilege of experiencing the eternal city as Romans themselves do. Rising just 46 meters above sea level, the Aventine Hill commands a stature in Roman society that towers over its modest elevation. This ancient refuge stands as Rome's most secretive aristocratic enclave, where the whispers of 2,000 years of history dance through orange groves and medieval pathways. The very ground beneath your feet here tells Rome's foundational story, the legendary quarrel between Romulus and Remus played out on these slopes, setting a precedent for the hill's enduring role as a counterpoint to imperial power. Archaeological evidence reveals settlements dating to the 8th century BCE, though the area remained outside Rome's sacred boundary until the 4th century BCE. By 494 BCE, the Aventine had transformed into a bastion for plebeians demanding political representation, housing temples that doubled as headquarters for social revolution. The delicious irony of modern Aventine lies in this historical flip. A hill once claimed by common citizens now hosts ambassadors and descendants of Europe's oldest noble families. High walls and centuries-old pines shield diplomatic residences and aristocratic compounds from prying eyes, creating an atmosphere of cultivated invisibility. Properties here rarely surface on public markets, with transactions occurring through whispered negotiations among dynasties whose bloodlines trace back to papal states and fallen kingdoms. The Aventine's winding streets reveal architectural treasures that reward the patient explorer. The Basilica of Santa Sabina, founded in 425 CE, stands as one of Christianity's earliest intact basilicas, its 5th century cypress doors carved with biblical scenes that have witnessed 15 centuries of devotion. Inside, 24 fluted Corinthian columns salvaged from pagan temples create a physical manifestation of Rome's spiritual evolution. Old gods literally supporting the new faith. Perhaps no spot better captures Aventine's essence than the priory of the Knights of Malta and its legendary keyhole. This unassuming portal on Piazza dei Cavalieri di Malta delivers Rome's most perfectly framed view. Peer through to discover St. Peter's Dome perfectly centered within a tunnel of manicured hedges. This keyhole aligns 3 sovereign territories in one glance: Italy, Vatican City, and the extraterritorial domain of the Knights of Malta. Designed by Giovan Battista Piranesi in 1765, the piazza surrounding this keyhole features nautical motifs referencing the hill's mythical identity as a sacred ship bound for heaven. The Orange Garden, crafted in 1932 by architect Raffaele De Vico, transforms the medieval Savelli fortress ruins into a sensory experience dripping with symbolism. 8,000 square meters of bitter orange trees, camellias and magnolias frame Rome's most seductive panorama. The curve of the Tiber, embracing the eternal city as Vatican domes shimmer in the distance. A Baroque fountain, repurposed from ancient Roman baths, provides liquid music that has flowed through empires. Just steps away, the Rose Garden showcases over 1,000 varieties blooming beneath the Palatine's watchful gaze, a living metaphor for the neighborhood's perennial dialogue with Rome's mythic beginnings. The hill's exclusivity crystallized in 2014 when construction workers unearthed a 2,000-year-old Republican-era villa, complete with defensive towers and 6 layers of mosaics. A discovery that instantly became a closely guarded archaeological treasure. The Hotel Villa San Pio, a collection of 19th-century villas surrounding a lemon-scented garden, offers visitors a taste of Aventine's discreet luxury with empire-style furnishings and terraces overlooking papal estates. The Aventine's allure lies in its mastery of paradox. Plebeian revolt transformed into diplomatic sanctuary, pagan temples reborn as Christian basilicas, and ancient fortresses blooming as public gardens. As evening shadows lengthen across the Knights of Malta keyhole, casting the perfectly framed St. Peter's dome into silhouette, one contemplates the ultimate Roman exclusivity. Not merely possessing wealth, but commanding a privileged view of history itself. But this is merely one facet of Rome's exclusive secrets. For northward across the city lies a neighborhood where wealth speaks not through ancient stones, but through the calculated elegance of the 19th century's most ambitious social engineers. North of the verdant expanse of Villa Borghese stretches Parioli, Rome's most meticulously manicured statement of 20th century wealth and influence. Unlike the Aventine's ancient mystique, Parioli represents planned perfection, a district conceived during Mussolini's ambitious Risanamento urban renewal of the 1920s. The neighborhood emerged as Italy's answer to the Parisian 16th arrondissement, with wide, plane tree-lined boulevards deliberately engineered to showcase a new Roman aristocracy. Parioli's architectural language speaks through an eclectic vocabulary. Neo-Renaissance palazzi stand shoulder to shoulder with rationalist apartment blocks and post-war modernist villas, creating a visual timeline of Italy's evolving identity. The true genius of Parioli's exclusivity lies in its curated anonymity. High walls, private gardens, and unmarked entrances shield a veritable who's who of Italian society. Political dynasties like the Andreotti and Prodi families maintain discreet residences here, while cultural icons from Sophia Loren to composer Ennio Morricone have called these tree-lined streets home. Viale dei Parioli serves as the district's ceremonial spine and unofficial diplomatic corridor, where embassy flags from Brazil to Japan flutter above immaculately trimmed hedges. Near the elegant Piazza Euclide stands the National Gallery of Modern Art, a neoclassical palace housing treasures spanning from Canova's muscular Hercules and Lichas to Balla's futurist explorations of motion and light. The adjacent museum of Carlo Bellotti showcases Warhol and De Chirico in a former orangery, establishing Parioli's credentials as both traditional and daringly contemporary. This artistic heritage extends to Galleria Mucciaccia, a brutalist concrete space specializing in post-war Italian abstraction, frequented by collectors who afterward take lunch at Il Cigno. This 1950s cafe patisserie serves cappuccinos beneath original Liberty-style stained glass and marble mosaics depicting swans in flight, a visual poetry that matches the neighborhood's refined aesthetic. Parioli's dining scene operates as a masterclass in understated exclusivity, where reservation books function as unofficial social registries. Al Ceppo, a Michelin-recommended institution since 1952, hides behind ivy-clad walls on Via Panama, its wood-fired Abacchio al Forno drawing power brokers who dine surrounded by vintage copper pots and yellowing family photographs. For aperitivo, the conoscenti gather at Enoteca Parlamento, a former wine cellar transformed into a velvet-lined lounge showcasing 500 labels, including rare Sassicaia vintages from the owner's Tuscan estate. Parioli guards its secrets jealously. None more intriguing than Villa Gloria, a 1950s apartment complex on Via Ruggero Fauero. This unassuming structure once hosted Federico Fellini during the scripting of La Dolce Vita, its courtyard still bearing graffiti scratched by poet-filmmaker Pier Paolo Pasolini during late-night intellectual salons. The basement once housed a smoky jazz club, a stark cultural contrast to Parioli's prevailing atmosphere of starched propriety. Amid the urban refinement, Villa Balestra provides a 17-acre green sanctuary veiled by cypress trees, its winding paths leading past a 16th-century nymphaeum repurposed as a private event space, available only to those with the right connections. Here, the children of diplomats ride ponies past weathered marble busts of Giuseppe Mazzini, while Tai Chi practitioners salute the dawn beneath imported Japanese maples. The villa's Teatro Parioli, a 1960s theatre space, stages avant-garde productions for members-only audiences, its seasonal program functioning as a carefully calibrated barometer of Rome's intellectual undercurrents. Parioli's calculated grandeur, its precisely measured tree spacing, its discreetly armored diplomatic vehicles, its whispered reservation systems, creates an environment where power operates through deliberate understatement. This is not the Rome of exuberant Baroque fountains or crumbling ancient monuments, but a Rome of polished marble lobbies where agreements shaping international finance are sealed with nothing more demonstrative than a slight nod. And yet, cross the Tiber's western bank and you'll discover another expression of Roman exclusivity, where wealth acquires legitimacy through proximity to the world's most enduring spiritual power. Cross the Tiber River and step into Trastevere, where Rome's most sophisticated form of exclusivity hides behind a carefully cultivated patina of artistic bohemia. Beyond the tourist-thronged Piazza di Santa Maria lies a parallel universe of privilege, accessible only to those who possess the cultural capital to recognize it. Here, labyrinthine alleys with names like Via della Lungarina and Vicolo del Bologna conceal a Rome invisible to guidebook followers. Ivy-draped portoni, massive wooden doors dating from the Renaissance, open to reveal secret courtyards where marble nymphs have sipped rainwater from ancient fonts for centuries. Artists like printmaker Giulia Napoleone maintain ateliers in converted stables, their entrances marked only by sprigs of dried lavender, a code comprehensible solely to fellow creators and collectors. The neighborhood's exclusive character thrives on curated invisibility. Invitation-only supper clubs announced through whispered word of mouth, galleries that open their doors only after recognizing familiar faces through peepholes. Villa Farnesina stands as Trastevere's crowning architectural jewel, a 16th-century riverside masterpiece designed by Baldassare Peruzzi for banker Agostino Chigi. Within its seemingly modest exterior lies the extraordinary Loggia di Galatea, painted by Raphael, depicting the sea nymph's procession beneath a trompe-l'oeil ceiling of citrus groves so convincingly rendered that bees perpetually hover among the painted fruits. The villa's Sala delle Prospettive creates the illusion of loggias overlooking 16th-century Rome, complete with authentic graffiti scratched by Chigi's illustrious guests, including a love-struck Emperor Charles V. Today, the villa's secret garden, an intricate geometric maze of myrtle hedges interspersed with ancient statuary, hosts alfresco chamber music concerts exclusively for donors to the Accademia dei Lincei, Italy's oldest scientific academy. The Basilica of Santa Cecilia anchors Piazza di Santa Cecilia, guarding a 9th-century mosaic of the martyred saint, her gold-cloaked figure floating serenely above a 1283 Pietro Cavallini fresco of the Last Judgment. Beneath the altar lies Stefano Maderno's 1600 sculpture of Cecilia's allegedly incorrupt body, resting in a crypt adorned with 18th-century ex-voto silver hearts, offerings from the faithful seeking her miraculous intervention. The piazza's monastic silence shatters nightly when Antico Arco opens its doors, allowing chef Patrizia Mattei to serve reimagined Roman classics like cacio e pepe, enhanced with black truffle and chestnut foam. The restaurant occupies a converted 16th-century watchtower, attracting regulars including actor Willem Dafoe, whose nearby Palazzetto Mira, a lovingly restored 17th-century townhouse near Piazza San Cosimato, features a private rooftop garden offering privileged views of Gianicolo Hill's Noon Cannon. Contemporary art finds sanctuary in Galleria Lorcan O'Neill, housed within a deconsecrated 16th-century convent where vaulted halls once filled with prayer now showcase Rachel Whitered's translucent resin casts and Francesco Vezzoli's sequin-encrusted tapestries. The gallery's hidden courtyard, accessible through a door cleverly disguised as an antique confessional, hosts performances by protégés of Marina Abramović, their avant-garde expressions of physical endurance unfolding beneath centuries-old frescoes of saints' martyrdoms. Nearby, Studio Stefania Michetti nurtures Rome's emerging street art movement from a former bakery, its back walls emblazoned with blues dystopian murals depicting skeletal gladiators doing battle with corporate logos. This juxtaposition, ancient sacred spaces repurposed for cutting-edge creativity, epitomizes Trastevere's unique brand of exclusivity. Unlike Parioli's calculated display of wealth or the Aventine's aristocratic seclusion, Trastevere offers the luxury of authentic artistic immersion, the privilege of living within a Renaissance masterpiece while participating in contemporary cultural production. The neighborhood's most coveted residences aren't palatial penthouses, but restored artisan workshops with centuries of creative energy absorbed into their walls. The true Trastevere insider doesn't flaunt wealth through fashion labels, but through knowledge, recognizing a 16th-century doorknocker's provenance or identifying which local cafe serves espresso in cups once used in Federico Fellini's film Roma. As twilight bathes Trastevere's ochre-washed buildings in gold, residents retreat behind anonymous facades that conceal entire worlds of artistic legacy and cultural capital. Yet even Trastevere's centuries-old blend of creativity and exclusivity pales in comparison to Rome's most fantastical aristocratic experiment, a neighborhood where architecture itself becomes a hallucinatory rejection of classical restraint. In a city defined by classical proportions and Renaissance harmony, Quartiere Coppede erupts like a fever dream rendered in stone and mortar. This 26-villa enclave near Via Nomentana represents the most audacious architectural experiment in modern Rome, a psychedelic rejection of restraint orchestrated by architect Gino Coppede in the 1920s. Where the Aventine whispers its exclusivity and Parioli calculates its grandeur, Quartiere Coppede screams its uniqueness through a hallucinatory fusion of seemingly incompatible elements. Assyrian lions guard entrances to buildings adorned with Gothic gargoyles, while Baroque putti, cavort alongside Byzantine mosaics in an architectural language that defies conventional categorization. This visual cacophony serves a deliberate purpose, creating a neighborhood accessible only to those whose imagination matches their wealth. Esoteric scholars have spent decades decoding the quarter's elaborate facades, identifying Masonic compasses embedded in the stonework of Palazzo del Ragno, Spider Palace, and alchemical salamanders writhing across Villa delle Fate, Fairy Villa. The neighborhood's spiritual center, Fontana delle Rane, Fountain of Frogs, features marble amphibians spouting water into a clamshell basin, immortalized when Marcello Mastroianni took his midnight dip in Federico Fellini's La Dolce Vita. Fellini, who lived nearby on Via Margutta, claimed the frogs' croaks echoed the absurdity of our political circus, an observation that resonates through Italy's tumultuous political landscape even today. Restored in 2019, the fountain's nightly light show bathes the piazza in otherworldly cobalt blue, drawing surrealist artists and Dolce Vita pilgrims to its illuminated waters. Villa delle Fate stands as the quarter's masterpiece, a 1924 villa featuring loggias frescoed with zodiac constellations and Art Nouveau stained glass, depicting Dante's Beatrice reimagined as a celestial nymph guiding souls through heavenly spheres. Coppede designed its central tower as a functioning astronomical observatory, precisely aligning its apex with Polaris during the 1925 summer solstice. Current owner Alessandra Coppede, the architect's great-granddaughter, maintains family tradition by hosting intellectual salons, exploring her ancestors' documented obsession with Rosicrucian symbology. This fascination manifests physically in the villa's mosaic floor, where roses and crosses intertwine in patterns that allegedly reveal cosmic harmonies to those versed in mystical geometry. The quarter's 21st-century custodians include filmmaker Paolo Sorrentino, who captured the great beauty's decadent rooftop parties at Palazzo degli Ambasciatori, and perfumer Laura Bozzetti Tonato, whose atelier in Villa La Torretta distills fragrances from the jasmine and wisteria cascading across Coppede's secluded courtyards. Strict conservation laws ensure the neighborhood's fantastical vision remains intact, mandating preservation of original stained glass, ironwork, and sculptural elements. These regulations are enforced not merely by government authorities, but by a neighborhood guild of master craftsmen, direct descendants of the artisans who collaborated with Coppede a century ago. Unlike Rome's ancient quarters, where exclusivity derives from historical patina, Quartier Coppede's uniqueness stems from deliberate eccentricity, the luxury of rejecting conventional taste. Residents here don't merely purchase real estate, they buy into a philosophical statement about individuality transcending architectural norms. Property transactions occur rarely, with many villas passing through family lineages, their interiors as fantastical as their facades, spiral staircases leading to rooftop observatories, libraries with sliding ladders offering access to esoteric texts, and dining rooms where ceiling frescoes depict mythological feast scenes. Visitors who stumble upon this architectural fantasy often describe the experience as stepping into a film set or fever dream, a disorientation that delights the quarter's residents, who value their neighborhood's ability to confound expectations. As evening descends on Quartier Coppede, stained glass windows illuminate from within, casting kaleidoscopic patterns across cobblestone streets, while frogs continue their eternal symphony from the fountain. Here, in this deliberate architectural hallucination, we find Rome's most distinctive expression of exclusivity, not merely wealth displayed through grandeur or heritage through antiquity, but imagination manifested through the courage to create a world entirely of one's own design. In a city layered with 2,000 years of architectural conventions, Quartier Corped stands a symbol of the ultimate Roman luxury, the freedom to dream beyond the constraints of history itself. And now I'd love to see you in the comments. Have you visited Rome before, and if so, any of these neighborhoods? I can't wait to hear your thoughts below, and thanks for joining me for another episode. Ta-ta until the next one.